The biggest hurdle that Caitlin Clark needs to overcome is her head coach.
This is how Caitlin Clark fans have felt all season long, that Stephanie White is the wrong coach for Caitlin Clark. And now, after what she said in her interview with Fever Insider, whatever goodwill the Fever's playoff run created for Coach White went out the door. Now, fans are begging Caitlin to get out. Not just out of Indiana, but out of the WNBA entirely. Somewhere she's actually valued. Let's unpack what Stephanie said, the real reason everyone's so pissed off, and what some people are missing. But first, a quick experiment. Do you think Stephanie White is the right coach for Caitlin? Drop a Y in the comments if you think she is. Drop an N if she's not. So, yeah, I watched the whole Stephanie White interview on Fever Insider. I listened to her talk about the team's resiliency, the playoff run, and even the book she's reading. And to be fair and balanced, she did speak favorably about Caitlin. She said she's mature beyond her years, called her Taylor Swift 2.0, and that she loves her teammates, loves to compete, and compared her to LeBron and Tiger Woods, that she's elite at what she does. But that's not what people are talking about, because there were two comments later in the interview that really set fans off. The first came when Stephanie started complaining about social media, about how mean everyone is.
You know, it's a great tool for a lot of different reasons. I just think it's become such a negative space, and it's just become a cesspool for negativity. And right now I'm at a point where I don't need or want that in my life.
Now on the surface, this doesn't seem so bad, but it follows a long pattern of players and coaches complaining about social media. And let's be honest, those complaints almost always end up aimed at Caitlin Clark's fans. Even though, let's be real, those fans are usually just pushing back against the most ridiculous gaslighting campaign in sports history. This idea that everything good that's happened to the WNBA over the last 2 years isn't because of Caitlin, it's because of the collective. And because of how ridiculous the media and players have been, the new fans, who are all Caitlin Clark fans, have made it their duty to call it out, mainly by pointing out the reasons they didn't watch before Caitlin Clark. That's where all the me-bounds memes came from. Normally, fans wouldn't focus so much on a player's horrible shooting, but because the W and the media keep pushing Angel as a star responsible for the league's growth, and Angel has bought into that.
The reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person, it's because of me too, and I want y'all to realize that.
Fans have hyper-focused on her flaws. And because virtually all the new fans are Caitlin Clark fans, they want to see her play as she did in Iowa. Free-flowing, fast-paced, logo threes, flair for the dramatic. They don't want to watch Steph White prison ball. And that's the conflict. It's kind of wild when you think about it. How could you take over a team with the league's generational star, and then build a system that isn't centered around her, and expect not to get blowback from fans?
We're saying let Caitlin do her thing. You are forgetting. You knew the spotlight Caitlin Clark had before you got here. You knew that before you got here. You signed up to be under the microscope and in the spotlight. That's part of the reason you came. That's part of the reason a lot of these players came, Natasha, because y'all wanted to gain off of Caitlin Clark's celebrity and clout. And y'all came over here so y'all can get clout. But you didn't like the other side of the coin, which was there is going to be a level of scrutiny. You are going to be held accountable. If you want to go somewhere where nobody cares and nobody's watching and you can stink it up, go to the Atlanta Dream. Nobody will be talking about you.
This is exactly right. Sure, Stephanie has every right to stay off social media, but the so-called negativity she's talking about isn't random hate. It's frustration. It's fans who are tired of watching her misuse Caitlin Clark, playing her off the ball, limiting what makes her special. And there's ample evidence to support the idea that Stephanie White doesn't want to build around Caitlin. She said in the past that she liked how the Mavericks played without Luka because it got the ball into more hands. Of course, Luka is a dynamic creator like Caitlin. She said she wasn't worried about Caitlin returning after her injury. She was more concerned about making sure she fits into the system. We have seen the interview where Caitlin said she was taken aside that magical night when she hit 3 long threes in a row and dropped 32 against the Liberty because she had a turnover. We have heard Caitlin say herself that she needs to have the ball more. I have shared all of these clips in my videos. Stephanie has a system she wants to play, and it seems completely at odds with Caitlin Clark, and especially at odds with what fans want to see. But this soundbite is not where fans really lost it. It was when Stephanie started talking about Kelsey Mitchell, and basically insinuated that she's the number one priority.
And I guess with the offseason too, Amber mentioned in her exit interview that the number one priority was to land Kelsey in free agency again. Just how important was she to your team this year? How important has she been to the Fever? Obviously, the 8 years she's been with the franchise, and how badly do you want to keep her around?
I mean, yeah, she was the number one priority a year ago, and she's the number one priority this year. She's been so important. And, I said this last year, Kelsey deserves to go through this stage of her Indiana Fever career. She's been through sort of the worst of the worst, for lack of a better term, in and out of the building, growing pains with getting the organization back. You don't get back-to-back number one picks unless you've been at the bottom for a while, right? And she showed up like a pro every day.
Now, to be fair, when Stephanie's talking about priorities, she's referring to free agency. So I'm not reading too much into that. And even the part where she said Kelsey deserves this part of her Fever career where the team is finally successful, I can give that a pass. I think the sentiment is that she lived through the failure years, and so, in that sense, the packed arenas and playoff basketball is a feel-good reward for sticking through it. But really, that's not the big issue. Here's where people really started losing it.
We love her. We want to continue to build, around her and continue for her to have success.
That's it right there. When she said, we want to continue to build around her success. The key word, continue. Because that's been the main sticking point for Caitlin Clark fans when it comes to Stephanie White and the Fever organization in general. They don't seem to be building around her. It's the other way around. They're trying to make her fit into the Stephanie White system. And that's what drives fans crazy. Because more than half of the WNBA's current audience is here to watch Iowa Caitlin, not Connecticut Sun-style Caitlin. Maybe it was loose phrasing. Maybe she means she wants to build around Kelsey in addition to Caitlin, and Aaliyah, and Lexi. But that's not how it landed. That's not how fans or even WNBA commentators heard it.
What is it with this rite of passage thing in the WNBA? Well, she's been around the league forever. Don't care. Okay, that's great. But Caitlin Clark is your generational talent. You just said on camera you want to build around Kelsey Mitchell? Really? All right. Wow. Oh, I seem to be under the remembrance that people said this was a conspiracy theory. No, that's Stephanie White I'm telling you right now, I believe Stephanie White believes Kelsey Mitchell's the best player on this team. That's on a team that's got Caitlin Clark on the team, on the roster.
The sentiment there is that Steph White prefers Kelsey and thinks the team is better without Caitlin. Tell me what you think about this in the comments, but I think some of this comes from on-court decisions, but also how White speaks about Caitlin off the court. Namely that she'll celebrate Kelsey's achievements, but disguise Caitlin's achievements.
But more specifically, when she was asked through the season, once Caitlin Clark won her ESPY award, Stephanie White was asked about this, and instead of boasting about Caitlin Clark, instead of gushing over Caitlin Clark, instead of hyping up her player, she brushed over Caitlin Clark's achievement, and she saw this as an opportunity to bring up players that nobody cared about in the past. Bring up Sue Bird. Yeah, Sue, you're cool. Nah, I don't care. Bring up Tara. I don't care. Bring up Brianna. Nah, I don't care. So even when asked with a direct question about Caitlin Clark's achievements, Stephanie White found a way to skirt over it and bring up people in the past.
And he's right. I've seen the clip. She was asked to comment on Caitlin winning an award, and she immediately started talking about the old guard, giving them credit when there was really no need to do that. And that is why fans reacted the way they did to her interview. The building around Kelsey comment seems like Steph White once again favoring an old guard-friendly player and stifling Caitlin in the process. It connects to a bigger pattern they already see. And that context is important because if you strip all that away and just take the interview at face value, it really is kind of a nothing burger.
People were angry. And they're angry about Stephanie White, and they're angry about something else. Stephanie White said in that interview, apparently, that the Fever should build around Kelsey Mitchell, which shows that she's the wrong coach for Caitlin Clark and she's there to sabotage the team. Kelsey Mitchell's a free agent. The front office has already said she's the number one priority. She should be the number one priority given how good she is. And when Stephanie White said they want to continue to build around Kelsey Mitchell, she means Kelsey Mitchell is part of the franchise, part of the foundation, part of the core. Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hull, the core of the team. But the core of the backcourt is Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell. We've already seen them thrive together. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. We've already seen how dangerous they are. We've already seen Caitlin Clark express her admiration for Stephanie White, express her admiration for Kelsey Mitchell. We've seen Kelsey Mitchell express her admiration for Caitlin Clark, and we've seen them cook together. So, what is the problem?
I get where Robin is coming from on this. On the surface, Steph White is saying some pretty benign things that normally wouldn't trigger such a response. But the reaction to this interview just shows where things stand right now with Caitlin Clark, the Fever, and the WNBA. More than half of the league's fans are new, and they are here because of Caitlin Clark. That is not up for debate. When she doesn't play, ratings drop by more than 50%. And when she returns, they bounce back to levels higher than the WNBA Finals for a regular season game. And the difference would be even more pronounced if Nielsen hadn't changed how they measure ratings in September to include 75 million devices instead of just 42,000, which inflated the playoff viewership numbers. And for 2 straight seasons, those new fans have been told that neither they nor Caitlin are responsible for the league's growth. ESPN keeps downplaying Caitlin Clark's impact by refusing to compare 2025 viewership numbers, when she's been injured, to 2024, when she played the full season. Because if they did, the massive drop would be impossible to ignore. It's an ecosystem that I believe cannot handle her being the star. And it's created a mess, and in my opinion, set the league back a decade. Because it's going to be a tough job to get Caitlin's fans to embrace the WNBA. The league's number one job should have been to win them over, and they've blown it. The only true bright spot has been Sophie Cunningham, because she is one of the few who actually calls it like it is, and calls out anyone who keeps denying Caitlin Clark's impact.
And it literally pisses me off when people are like, she's not the face of the league.
Who would be?
What?
Sabrina? No.
No, there's really good, well-known people in our league. I'm not discrediting them. We have a lot of badasses in our league.
Yeah.
Hell yeah to that. I'm all for that. But when people try to argue that she's not the face of our league,
Yeah.
or if our league would be where we're at without her, you're dumb as shit.
Yeah.
You're literally dumb as fuck.
And we all know what happened to Sophie after she took down JC Sheldon and started speaking up about Caitlin's impact and how she's treated by the refs and players. Her popularity skyrocketed. She's among the most bankable players in the league, and she's also Kathy Engelbert's public enemy #1. Because unlike Caitlin, who tends to keep quiet, Sophie is not afraid to call her out.
I think this is just such a pivotal point in the WNBA, because there are so many eyes on us. There's so many new fans. There's millions, I should say, new fans. And at the end of the day, she's worried about her. In all of her statements, it's all like, well, I got us here and I should. And Kathy, no one cares. Literally, no one cares. How you're sitting right there, that's how we feel every time she speaks. Every time she speaks, us as players, that's how we feel.
Now, to close this out, there is one thing Steph White said that I agree with and makes all of this make sense.
Again, I think I said this on Jake's interview too. It's we've forgotten that we can hold space for multiple truths. Multiple things can be true.
She's right. There can be multiple truths. And that applies to this interview and the reaction. It can be true that Steph doesn't mean that she's only building around Kelsey Mitchell. She can like and respect Caitlin Clark as a person and a competitor. But it can also be true that fans have seen enough over the past year to believe that Coach White doesn't want to build around Caitlin Clark. And also that Caitlin is not in the best environment to excel. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching.